Welcome back to another episode of Biohacking Beauty, the show where we simplify the science of looking and feeling young, brought to you by Young Goose, the biohacking skincare company helping you optimize how you age from the inside out. Today's episode is a wake up call for anyone trying to fight aging from the outside only. Because the truth is, we're biologically wired to care about beauty. Youthful features like glowing skin, thick hair, and balanced fat distribution aren't just cultural preferences, they're hormonal signals of vitality and health. And when those hormones start to decline in your 30s, 40s, and obviously beyond, those visual cues decline as well, visual vibrance and youthful states. Our guest today, Karen Martel, is here to flip the script on aging. She's a certified hormone specialist, CEO of Hormone Solutions, and host of the Hormone Solution podcast. Karen's breaking down why HRT, stands for hormone replacement therapy, may be the most underused beauty tool available to women, and how both internal and topical hormones can help you look and feel yourself again. In this episode, you will learn why the medical system is failing women when it comes to hormone optimization, how estrogen and testosterone impact your skin's elasticity, hydration, and even tone, and why prioritizing your hormones might be the smartest anti-aging move you'll ever make. This podcast, as I said, brought to you by Young Goose. If you are interested in Young Goose products, head over to younggoose.com. Use promo code podcast10 to get 10% off your order. And now, let's get into it. Hello, Karen. Welcome to the Biohacking Beauty podcast.
Hello, Amitai.
Obviously, a lot is happening, and it is fantastic to have you here. And where I want to start this, I'm actually listening. We're watching, Anastasia and I were watching Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, okay.
That's our guilty pleasure. And
Okay.
my favorite character is this news anchor. Is called Bert Hapley, and he says what we're going to be talking about now is the thing that we're going to be talking about, and that is, and then he starts. So that I kind of did that now. But what I want to start with actually is something. It's a legit pet peeve of mine.
Okay.
And that is why we are wired for beauty. So I want to start by maybe like talking about the evolutionary biology a little bit.
Yeah. Because what I think a lot of women don't understand is that we are hardwired. Men are hardwired. Women are hardwired to hold on to beauty, and men hold on to being attracted to beauty. It doesn't matter what age they are.
Yeah.
And yes, so much of it is, of course, from our environment, what we see on TV, social media. Like, we're constantly being told as women, hold on to youth, look as young as possible, do whatever you have to do, cut your face open, cut your body open, do not age, whatever you do, because then you're not revered anymore. And it can be very like discouraging and hard on us. And it's like, man, this is tough. But when you start to look at what we're actually hardwired for, which I always do, I always look to, why do we do the things that we do? And we always have to go back to, with everything, that we are hardwired to procreate and to survive.
Yeah.
That's it. And your body doesn't know that you're in 2025 and that you've got all these things and that you're cold plunging and fasting and taking all the products to help you live longer. It doesn't know that. We're hardwired for survival and to procreate.
Yes. And I think we are talking about, we're blending two things and our society, the conversation is blending two things that, for the sake of this kind of deep dive kind of discussion, I think we should separate them and make sure we kind of respect both of them separately. Which
Absolutely.
first is the social hierarchy, which is very important for survival, and that is why we're, anyone that says, hey, women in the age of the Renaissance were depicted in a certain way, and that was like, the standard of beauty and things like that. It is 100% correct. There is a social input that we process within the output that we get, that in the end is called beauty, right? Or the attraction, or skew for again, like social hierarchical type cue that we're looking for as in a mate.
Yeah.
The other, and that is, we say in Hebrew, it is the respect for it is positioned in its place. Like you don't touch it. I don't know if
Right.
I translated it well, but anyway, um, the second thing, and I think something that it's less comfortable to talk about, but I think it's very important to understand in the grand scheme of things, is the hormonal cues that are behind beauty, as far as maybe like glowing skin, full hair, um, body composition, or ratios, like all of those things within the context of skin. By the way, that there's many aspects, but that aspect of youthful, functioning looking skin. These are cues that were communicating to the environment, hey, we are of reproductive age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And when I started to dive into the research of it, and I asked, I asked research, like through the perplexity and what have you, I was Googling it and trying to figure out, is there a connection between pheromones and our hormones?
Yeah.
And of course there is. There's not a ton yet, but
Hmm.
with some preliminary studies, they have shown that pheromones, which for those of you that don't know, this is our natural smell that we
Hmm.
give off to attract a mate. And
Hmm.
when a woman is ovulating, she's going to let out a smell that can't be actually smelt, but you will let out a smell that will attract a mate. And it tells your male counterparts that you are fertile and you are
Hmm.
ready to go. And
Yeah.
we are driven to have sex by these pheromones. And you can think of it as, if you've ever met somebody where maybe you don't think they're like super good looking or they don't check all the boxes, but there's just something about them where you're super drawn into, like, oh, wow, I don't know what it is about that guy or that woman, but
Hmm.
whew, they've got something. That's pheromones.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know, like, do we lose this as well when we age? And sure enough, we do. And there is some research showing that estradiol and testosterone can drive pheromone production.
Well, to the extent that we are the detractors of birth control pills.
I was going to say that. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So they have studied women on birth control pills will not let out the same pheromones, nor will they be attracted to the same mate that they would have been attracted to, like not in all circumstances, but they wouldn't be attracted
Yeah.
to that same person if they weren't on birth control. And so
Hmm.
some women come off birth control and then realize, oh my gosh, I'm not attracted to my partner, which is terrible. But and I don't think it happens to every single person on birth control. But if you read the Your Mind on Birth Control, is it called? Do you know?
I can recommend a book
Your
called
Brain on Birth Control?
Your Brain on Birth Control,
Okay.
and I
Yes.
can also recommend a book called, Anastasia recommends it a lot, so pardon my. It's called Moody Bitches.
Okay.
It's a really good book, and is by a female, incredible female. I think she's a DO, but she's like incredible, and she talks a lot about it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It really it messes with the pheromones and what you're
Hmm.
being attracted to because it's shutting down ovulation and it's
Yeah.
shutting down your own hormone production. And so
Hmm.
our hormones are driving a lot of this. And so as we age, we're not only changing in body composition and our visual, how we look, the outward appearance, but things are changing on the inside that also make you feel less attractive
Yeah.
because you're not having those surges of hormones. I mean, right before we ovulate, our estradiol levels triple.
Yeah.
Triple. We have an estrogen spike and a testosterone spike right before we ovulate. What does
Yeah.
this do? It makes us want to have sex, all that estrogen, lubricates the vaginal tissue so that you can have sex. And then the testosterone is what drives you to go out and get it. It gives you that oomph, like, okay, I'm going to go out and get some, right? It's all
Hmm.
biology. And then
Yeah.
men, on the other hand, you guys, you're really raring to go at all times. And
Yeah.
you should be anyways. Like with your testosterone, you guys
Yeah.
don't cycle because your job in evolution is to spread your seed far and wide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are wired to go after those pheromones, as well as you are wired to look for hips,
Hmm.
breasts. You look for symmetry in the
Hmm.
face.
Yeah.
You know, you look for plump skin, plump lips, plump body. You are wired to be attracted to that because that says fertility and it says
Yeah.
health. Health, that person could carry a child for you.
Yeah, and I feel like within the longevity biohacking sphere, we're always going like, to two extremes. The really clinical extreme, where we're saying, hey, now we can use an app to analyze your appearances and predict disease because of that.
Wow.
Yeah. Because again, like the way that we look, especially statistically, the way we look over time can predict disease, obviously stress responses, etc. And of course, we then swing to the other extreme, which is like what we're talking about here is like, oh, what happened when we lived in caves, right? Or by the way, even looking at earlier species, like we know that um, anything from crustaceans to mammals, where there is a hierarchical type response, like a feedback loop, where
Yep.
someone gets higher on the totem pole and vice versa. The testosterone changes in men because when you're higher on the totem pole, evolutionarily, that means that you should be spreading your seed more. Again, from an evolutionarily kind of cue, that
Yes.
means you're more successful, whatever. So yeah, I think it's like a really cool way to paint the picture here. It-
Yeah.
and you reaffirm that beauty is a health signal, not only a superficial type,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, and it
depiction.
can just almost it for if you can think about it in the right way, it does relieve some of the pressure, I think,
Mhm.
from us or some of the judgment we might have actually on men.
Yeah,
Right? Because we have it, a lot of women will think, well, men are just attracted to younger women and assholes or whatever, It's like, just, we can cut you guys down, honestly,
yeah,
because you're going for the younger women.
yeah.
And so when you kind of hear like, wow, biology it drives a lot of men to be looking at that.
Hmm.
But what it also tells us is if we can stay on top of these things as we're aging, that's another piece to this puzzle where you can hold on to that visceral attraction that we can hold, that we can carry on well
Yeah,
into, I think, for the rest of our life, really,
yeah,
with our partner. If
yes.
we can, still feel sexy in our bodies, doesn't matter what age we are, that we still have a sex drive, even though we're
Yeah.
60 or 70 or 80 years old.
Hmm.
And then we have to circle then back to hormones and hormone replacement therapy. And of course,
Hmm.
all the other things always have to stay in this picture.
Yeah.
These aren't, that's not always the quick fix. You can't just slap on hormones and have a poor diet and,
Hmm.
not work out. And I always reassure people that I don't think that HRT is the answer to everything, but I
Yeah.
do think it's a massive piece to this puzzle that women really have to like look into and educate themselves about, because we see that if we start replacing our hormones at a younger age, not when we're full blown in menopause and we're already 20 pounds overweight, losing our hair, our skin's already loose and wrinkly. And if we can catch it beforehand as the hormones are depleting,
Hmm.
we can really hold on to youth a lot longer. And then not only that, we might still, of course, we're still going to age. We're always going to still age, but you'll feel good. You
Yeah.
feel sexier.
Hmm.
I had a woman actually even write me once, like a week into using estrogen. She said, "Oh my gosh, my vagina has come back to life." It's like, there
Yeah.
you go. Like, you don't want to have sex if your poor vagina is dried up and
Yeah.
hurts and you can't, right?
And I
And you
think,
certainly don't feel sexy.
yeah, I agree. And I think there are a lot of correlations between um, vaginal health and skin health. And I think
There really
when I
is.
lose people there, I tell them, hey, red light therapy was used for, a decade on the membrane that it comprises the inside of your mouth and the vagina before anyone used it in skin health. So there's that. But
Yeah. I
but
always say we got to put the anti-aging cream on these lips and those lips.
exactly.
Right? We
But
got to take care of both.
100%. But I think it's undeniable, or we obviously it's undeniable, but we should uh, bear in mind that really estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, which are the three kind of mega players in this hormonal dance, really influence anything from skin thickness to hydration, elasticity, and even pigmentation. When I did a episode once, like for I think it was for Father's Day, like last year or whatever, and I was like, there's so much discussion around, skincare for men. There are companies that built their entire ethos on skincare for men. I'm like, really, there's no the only difference is, and more
Yeah.
testosterone makes your skin thicker. That's kind of the only difference. Um, but these are the kind of major players in skin health.
But when women should be using testosterone too for that
Yeah, yeah,
reason.
yeah,
It does
yeah, yeah,
keep
yeah,
your skin thicker.
yeah,
And also testosterone is so important for muscle. And
yeah,
we start getting sarcopenia, and everybody
yeah,
thinks of sarcopenia happening, from the neck down. But you guys, we've got muscle in our face.
yeah.
And so women that replace their testosterone actually can hold the structure of their face for longer. Like their
And not even,
muscles in the face stay
yeah,
strong.
and not only muscle, but really the balance of those three is also ideal. The balance, I think, is important here, but the balance of all three is important for fat distribution.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I was going to say too is there's I'm sure you get this a lot, is adult acne. And for women that hit
Hmm.
menopause and they're like, like, I feel like I'm a 14-year-old teenager. My emotions are going up and down. I've got pizza face suddenly. Like,
Hmm.
why am I getting acne at 50 years old?
Hmm.
And this because we become testosterone dominant.
Yeah.
And as the estrogen goes down, all estradiol in the ovaries comes from testosterone. It's
Hmm.
converted from testosterone to estradiol.
Hmm.
As our estradiol starts to go down, testosterone will actually go up. It's going to get the signal, hey, we need more estrogen,
Hmm.
so produce more testosterone. But the enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen starts to become faulty. And so
Hmm.
now we start getting too much testosterone in comparison to the estradiol. And
Yeah.
then whammo, you can start breaking out in acne at 50, which who
Yeah.
wants that? Like, no, thank you. But yes, the three together, I think that that's such an important thing for everybody to hear, because in this industry, I really see a lot of different camps. Like you're going to get the pellet people that are like, every woman needs to be loaded with testosterone, and they'll give them things to lower their estrogen, and maybe they'll get some progesterone, but they're doing this like super high dose of testosterone,
Yeah.
which is not meant for women. And we feel good on it. Sex drive goes way up. We feel like we've got a lot of energy. It's a steroid. It's like, woohoo. But then they start losing their head hair. They start getting acne.
Yeah.
They start growing whiskers. And so that's not right. And then
No.
you'll have the camps where maybe they're doing super high doses of estrogen, and that's not good either. And then we have the camp of every woman needs to be on super high doses of progesterone, and it's progesterone that's the most important. That's not true either. And we
Yeah.
have to be very careful. These hormones work very synergistically together, and they
Yeah.
will impact each other, and it will impact them negatively if you're out of balance on them.
And I think there's also the camp still, the camp that is stuck from like 20 years ago, which is the fear-based camp around HRT, like in general. I think there is a huge
It's huge.
sect that still has like an outdated approach to HRT.
Well, most women are still being told by their primary physician that they
Yeah.
will not give them HRT because it will cause cancer.
Yeah.
And we hear this every day in our
Yeah.
practice from women, and some of the stories are horrifying. Like these women are being, it's such gaslighting. Like I can't even, like women being told like, get out of my office. I will not prescribe you HRT. If you want HRT, go see somebody else. Like that's
Wow.
how harsh I've heard like
So
stories.
let's start with like kind of dispelling that
Yeah.
notion that HRT promotes cancer or anything like that. Maybe we'll go over that like seminal study that started it all, and why it's not, it's negligible, the effects there.
Yes. And I always start with saying, if hormones caused cancer, well, number one, whatever you believe in, if you believe there's God or a maker up there, why would that being give us hormones that help us to produce life
Mm-hmm.
cause cancer? Why would those same chemicals cause cancer? That makes
Mm-hmm.
no sense. Okay.
Okay.
Also, if estrogen caused cancer, which is always the one, it's always estrogen that everybody fears. If estrogen caused cancer, every 25-year-old woman would be dead
Yeah.
from cancer. And when do we see the highest rates of cancer? In menopause, breast cancer included. Where do we see it? It's always in
Yeah.
menopause and after.
Yeah.
Right.
First,
So
yeah.
just like really, I want everybody just to get really clear and like really think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the myths come from the WHI study, which
Yeah.
was done, in the late 1990s. And prior to that, estrogen was the number one prescribed medication in
Wow.
America. Yeah. And so you can imagine most women were on it. It was Premarin, which came from pregnant horses' urine. They set out to do this study to prove that HRT helped reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. That was their whole intention. They started the study, had a couple different arms of the study, of course. It was one of the largest studies of its kind. So there was a lot of people in it. One arm of the study, the women had their uterus. So they put them on Premarin with a synthetic oral progestin, which is what you'll find
Yeah.
in many birth control pills. The other arm of the study, the women had a hysterectomy, so they only put them on the Premarin. All
Got
right.
it.
So years into this study, they saw an increase in breast cancer. Not a lot. There was one, not even, it was 0.8 extra of cases
Yeah.
out of every 1,000 increased risk of breast cancer. So what did they do? They've sent out to the world, get women off HRT. It increases their risk of breast cancer. This is dangerous. All doctors stop prescribing it, and boom. And that is literally what happened. It dropped down to something like 4% of women were on some form of
Yeah.
HRT after that study came out. Now, years later, the same people that held that study have now come out to say several times, Actually, let's just clarify that. It was the arm of the study where the women were taking the progestin, and the arm of the study that the women had had a hysterectomy and were on Premarin only had a reduction of breast cancer cases by 23%. Not only that, they had a reduction in all causes of mortality by over 30%. So
Yeah.
all causes of death. And so the study showed everything across the board. The cancer went down, cardiovascular risk went down, diabetes went down, osteoporosis went down, and there was less reoccurrence of breast cancer if somebody did end up getting breast cancer. That if the woman had been on estrogen, and it was very specific to estrogen, she had less risk of reoccurrence of getting that breast cancer. And so
Hmm.
what does that tell us? It's estrogen helps reduce your risk of breast cancer, ladies. And that birth control pill that doctors hand out like candy to your 16-year-old daughter and say, oh, you can stay on this for 10 years,
Yeah.
is the exact same chemical in some of them that showed an increased risk of breast cancer. And they do say that now. They're starting to study it more where they're showing that
Yeah.
birth control in general increases a woman's risk of breast cancer. But we don't see doctors freaking out and telling women, get out of my office if they ask for birth control. We
Yeah.
hand it out.
And I think this is a good place to also talk about the difference between synthetic and bioidentical hormones
Mm-hmm.
and why it matters for overall health, like you've just mentioned, or like we've alluded to as far as like Premarin, but also for skin health specifically, and what we know as far as like the benefits of bioidentical hormones and skin health.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when it comes to beauty and
Hmm.
hormones, we do want to be on the bioidenticals
Yeah.
because oral estrogen does increase your risk of heart attack and stroke. It can be very inflammatory because it converts primarily to estrone, which is an inflammatory estrogen that is more linked to being
Hmm.
proliferative. And if you've got cancer cells, it can make that grow. And that's the connection with
Yeah.
breast cancer. And so taking it transdermally, it doesn't convert as highly to that estrone. And so transdermal bioidentical it's body identical. It's exactly the same makeup as what you produce in your own body. And
Yeah.
it comes from originally from plants. It's chemically synthesized in a lab, but it comes originally from a chemical coming from the yam and the soy plant. And which
Yeah.
is, I think, such a cool thing that we need to remember Mother Earth has given us this. And I always remind women of that is it comes from Mother Earth. And that makes it just feel that much better that so many of the medications nowadays have come from something in nature.
Yeah. And I think, and let's make a distinction, like a positive distinction between what you just said, which are transdermal creams for kind of whole body HRT, and
Hmm.
topical estrogen, estriol, estradiol creams that are specifically, whether it is like face, neck, or vaginal skin.
Yeah. We really like the idea of, oh, let's put some estrogen on our face. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. I carry one, and it's miraculous on the face
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Love it. Research is great behind what it shows behind it. And I know you've talked about this on your show before. But we really need to get the systemic levels up
Yeah.
at the same time. We
Mm-hmm.
can't just apply to the face. It actually doesn't typically go systemic. When you put
Mm-hmm.
the amount
Exactly.
that you're
Yeah.
putting on your face isn't going to raise your systemic levels high enough for you to get the benefits from them.
Yeah.
Things like vaginal dryness, like, yeah, you can put it topical there too, but guess what? It hasn't have a great increase in systemic
Yeah.
levels.
Yeah.
And so taking it systemically, you're going to have better blood sugar control. Estradiol is needed to control body weight. I
Mm-hmm.
always just say that, too much estrogen, sure, it's going to make you gain weight. And a lot of women think that they've got estrogen dominance and they might, and that's what makes them fat is this estrogen. But the lack of estrogen actually causes you to gain more weight than too much.
Yeah.
And when we start losing this estrogen, we become insulin resistant almost across the board. Like if you don't, for the longer you go without estrogen, the higher the A1C goes. You don't have to change your diet, your
Yeah.
workouts, nothing. We see A1C and cholesterol going up in any woman that is not on estradiol. And
Yeah.
estradiol, we need to get it to a certain level in our blood in order to get the protection from it. It's things like bones,
Yeah.
talking about beauty. Well, we all start to shrink, right? Our
Yeah.
bones start to become brittle. We start to get osteopenia and osteoporosis. We start
Mm-hmm.
getting the hunchback. And that is a very classic, it's called kyphosis, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
curvature of the spine. Hunchback, old lady syndrome, where you see all these little old ladies with their canes. This is, without these hormones, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, your bones start to go. And that
Yeah.
creates, not a sight that we want to be seen for
Yeah.
ourselves. We don't want to have a hunchback. Not only that, our hair, like estradiol is needed for hair growth. It
Mm-hmm.
actually, as we start losing estrogen, we start going into we stay in the shedding stage longer
Yeah.
than the growth phase in hair.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why some women will start losing their hair.
Yeah.
Old lady voice.
Yeah.
We need estradiol. We have estradiol receptors in the folds of our vocal cords. So we can, that old lady croaky voice,
Yeah.
estrogen deficiency. So these are all things that affect how you feel about yourself.
I just want to
We,
say,
what?
no, about kyphosis,
Yep.
that my grandma used to blame us. She said, "Hey, you don't speak loud enough. I need to
You have
lean
to bend
forward
down.
to I need to lean forward to hear what you're saying, and you're causing me the hunchback. So speak up, you know."
Okay. Okay.
Uh, but yeah. Um, and mentioning, blood sugar, basically one of the things that happens if someone becomes testosterone dominant is that testosterone's job is to pack glycogen, to improve glycogen packing mainly into muscles. But if you have too much of that, basically, if the muscles are full, it's going to start to pack them in things like, the liver, for example, or internal organs. So you're also risking, fatty liver, and that's mainly what you see with as far as like internal organ and how testosterone dominance affects them. Aside from things like kind of face swelling, things like that. So there's a lot there as far as like hormone balance,
Yes.
um and of course like just longevity in general, just like keeping a youthful functioning body.
Well, that's it, right? Like
Yeah.
we need estrogen for muscle growth, not just testosterone, but to keep the muscle, we need estrogen, we need testosterone to
Hmm.
keep our brain healthy and vibrant and so
Yeah.
we don't lose our words. We have estrogen, our brain is rich with estrogen receptors. We have estrogen receptors in the hunger centers of our brain.
Hmm.
So we can get dysregulated eating
Hmm.
patterns as we start to lose estrogen. And that's one of the reasons we start gaining weight when we start to get that minnow belly that every woman dreads that seems to happen to almost like I would say a good 75% of women nowadays. You
Yeah.
can tell when women have hit menopause because it's like they just get square in their midsection. I did when I hit menopause early. I gained 15 pounds, was all right in my stomach. It was
Wow.
like, oh, what just happened? And
Hmm.
this is, this can be to people that are super healthy. I was super healthy. I am super healthy. I eat I eat great. I don't drink. I don't, I exercise. I do all the things, and it still happened.
Yeah.
And so we got to catch this as they start to deplete so we can hold on to the beauty not only on the outside but also on
Yeah.
the inside and how we're feeling and how
Hmm.
if how vibrant we feel and how sexy we feel. We lose, like, this is kind of a funny one, but we we can lose what looks like we lose a part of our vagina. It's called
Yeah.
the labia minora, and
Hmm.
it's the little skin folds in the vagina that, if without the estrogen, that can get dry and actually look like they disappear. So
Wow.
I just did a podcast that was called "The Disappearing Labia" because It's like, oh my gosh, like we're going to lose part of our vagina. Like, what the heck? Like these are all things that we're not getting that's not getting talked about,
Yeah.
that really affect a woman's self-esteem and confidence. And like I said, it's not just about our outward looks. It's about how you feel and what you're exuding out to the world. And you
Yeah.
want to feel good and you want to age well.
Yeah.
There was a study done on biological aging that showed women in menopause within 6 months aged biologically 9 years.
Wow.
And estrogen will impact telomere length as well, which is a sign of aging. Our telomeres get shorter as we age. And you can
Yeah.
look at telomere length to see, like, biologically how old you are. Well, estrogen helps keep them longer. Mitochondrial health. I mean, I could go on and on, but
Yeah.
point being is hormones are a really important part of the puzzle. And a lot of women will say, well, it's not natural for us to replace it's natural for us to go into menopause. Yeah, but it was natural for us to die at menopause
Yeah.
up
Yeah. Yeah.
until
Yeah.
100 years ago,
Yeah.
right? We didn't
Basically,
live this long before.
your body goes into hibernation. That is what menopause really is. It is our body saying, hey, my job now in the tribe is preserving my knowledge. It's extremely important. I mean, I don't want to get too much into it because it's going to become a completely different podcast here. But one of the things that have propagated the human species across time and geographically is the ability to hold on to knowledge and pass it from one generation to another.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And one of the areas that have been added to a species life that don't exist really in nature is that hibernation stage, which is the later stage of our life where we become like wise elders.
Mm-hmm.
And especially both in both sexes, but especially in females, it is then taking care of the offsprings and kind of passing on the knowledge of being a effective caretaker, and obviously dealing with different issues, diseases, etc., that affect young ones, and obviously then you can affect anything from successful births to obviously like infants not dying, etc., etc., etc. So that's something extremely important that evolutionarily we really needed. And so there is an
And we
evolutionary
still need it.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
By the way, 100%. But we don't need to feel. We don't need to hibernate to do that, right? Like there is
No,
no.
we
I,
don't.
I would argue your brain actually works better if you're sexually viable. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that that's an important thing to
yeah,
hear too, because we're talking so much about beauty and
yeah,
looks. It's women, we also have to embrace our
yeah.
age and not fight it as much as we do. I think that, yes, let's take advantage of all the things that we have in our toolkits, like HRT, like Young Goose
Hmm.
skincare. Like I'm drowning myself in that every day. And I'm doing all these things to help, stay
Yeah,
youthful looking as long as possible. But at the same time, I always remind myself that this is another chapter in life that we need to revere. We need to be super
yeah,
excited that we're going into this stage in life, and we can become the wise women. We can become the the person that our grandkids can look up to, and our kids can look up to and listen to.
hmm,
And there's so much to be said about this time. I definitely feel more myself than I ever have. And I think that this is a time in women's life where we really do start to look inward and start to go, okay, what do I want? Like, my
yeah,
kids are growing up. They don't need me as much anymore. And I've picked my partner. I've got the job down. So what do I want now?
yeah,
And it can be this great time to actually like pay attention to yourself. We can't keep fighting that. And I think that there has to be that level of acceptance and go, yeah, I think I'm going to embrace getting older and
yeah.
really live it up in a completely different way than I have till this
I
point.
I can't agree more. Um, and so within that, I want to get a little bit like technical as far as like, so how does it work? Let's say someone came to you within the context of perimenopause or menopause. Um, so first of all, you run a blood panel and kind of see
Yep.
where their hormones are at.
Always.
And let's say, how do you target multiple factors such as, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone? Is it one compounded solution that then is then applied topically? Do they need to use multiple products within? I definitely would love. I'm keeping for my second question, like how do we combine it with topical estrogen based skincare? But
Right.
how do we target those many layers? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do it a very specific way in our clinic because I really do try to stay as close as I can to Mother Nature, because Mother Nature
Mhm.
does nothing by accident.
Mhm.
And naturally, we only produce progesterone in the second half of our cycle
Mhm.
after we ovulate. And, testosterone, it doesn't swing too much. It stays a very, same doses. It does go up before ovulation and what have you, but it's a pretty steady dose. But there's ways that your body takes it in better than others. And same with progesterone and same with estrogen.
Yeah.
We want estradiol. We don't want this combination estriol and estradiol systemically, which is very common. In case you didn't know, it's very common for women to be prescribed mostly estriol with a little bit of estradiol because of that fear around estrogen.
Mhm.
Estriol is a very weak hormone. It's what we produce when we're pregnant. That's when we produce the most of it.
Mhm.
In any other time besides pregnancy, we get a little conversion of estrone and estradiol down to estriol for what your body needs. And so we do follow that, and we know that estradiol is the most important of all the hormones for women. It's being refused to them until they're in menopause. So we change that too. If somebody comes to us in perimenopause that shows signs that they're starting to lose their estradiol, that's from the blood work and from symptoms. We put the two together. And if an FSH is elevated and the estradiol is a little bit lower than it should, that kind of thing. Or for that woman, maybe her labs look good, but she has all the symptoms. Then it's like, okay, well, we'll give you a baby dose of estradiol because we don't want her to keep suffering. And
Mhm.
then progesterone, same thing. We want to cycle it. Estradiol is given daily. We do triple it for some women that want to kind of try to mimic it even more. We will
Yeah.
triple it on day 12 because when we triple estrogen, you do get an upregulation of a tumor suppressing enzyme. Great, right? Like I
Yeah.
said, Mother Nature does not do things by accident. So we do try to cover those things. And then testosterone, some women lose it, some don't.
Yeah.
And some women are high converters to something called DHT, which does cause the acne and the hair loss.
Mhm.
So we are very careful with testosterone. We come in at a very small dose. And even with estradiol, we also come in at a small dose because too much you start to get symptoms, of course, of too much
I'll give you a
estrogen. And
tip.
that's not fun.
I'll give you a tip. Uh, a woo-woo holistic tip for high converters, men and women both, is high dose megadose cordyceps mushrooms.
Ooh, that
Megadose
is.
cordyceps lower conversion to DHT. So
There you
yeah,
go.
but if you're a low converter, you might want to kind of scale back your cordyceps
Right.
usage. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because we do want some DHT
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Men definitely want it.
Hmm.
But although it can make you lose your hair. So we don't
It's
want
called
that. But
the Chad hormone. It's you become a bro, like you get a square jaw and stuff like
okay.
that.
Yeah.
So
Very
yeah.
masculine. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So we do try to get levels up to what we call physiologic dosing, which is where we see the benefits kicking in. So
Hmm.
when you look at the research and really go through it all, you see that estradiol needs to be at a certain level in the body in order to get these benefits, the beauty benefits, the brain benefits, the heart benefits, the vaginal benefits. We need it to be at a certain level. And that level actually can usually cause women to have a period. So you
Hmm.
could be 60 on HRT, no longer ovulating, and actually continue to have a cycle. And
Wow.
For some women, they're like, no way, I do not want a period. And if that's the case, then we'll tell them, okay, well, then you'll probably have to use progesterone daily in order to get your estrogen that high, but not to bleed. But if you're
Mhm.
cycling progesterone, which is what we see working best, and you
What do
get
you
your
mean?
estradiol level high enough.
What do you mean by working best as far as like these end kind of downstream results?
Yep, because they all work synergistically together. If
Yeah.
you start using progesterone every day, especially in high doses,
Hmm.
you will start to suppress your estrogen. We need estradiol to make progesterone receptors to
Hmm.
upregulate them. And then
Hmm.
progesterone upregulates estradiol receptors. And so if you start squashing estradiol, now your progesterone doesn't work as well. And
Got it.
then your estrogen starts to lower and you don't get the benefits.
Hmm.
And so we see this happening a lot in mainstream kind of HRT clinics where they're giving these super high doses of progesterone, barely any estrogen or bias, and the women are not getting the benefits. They on
Hmm.
labs, they're showing like less than 10 on their estradiol. And we know that like volumization of the brain, it takes up to 2 milligrams of estradiol HRT daily to volumize the brain. So
Hmm.
yes, we all want our brain to be volumized. That's a good
Well,
thing.
I'll tell you another joke from my family. That's not my
Okay.
grandma now. This is her son, my uncle, who lost his hair very early, and he said it's because his brain was too big. It was pushing the hair out. So, I mean, that might be an issue.
Maybe he was on a lot of estrogen,
Shout out to Dr. Ted White's, one of the smartest people in the world. Um, so here's the $1 million question in kind of what you are known for, really, is the combination of, the
Yeah.
combination of both topical I just want to make sure some people's I zone in and out all the time when I hear podcasts. So although we're talking about so by the way, like let's before we do that, so our let's assume someone was supplementing on one or even all three of the HRT hormones so related. Are all of them now kind of used as a transdermal application for the most part?
Testosterone, we prefer to do injectable. Many
Mhm.
women like oral
Mhm.
progesterone, but it is better in my eyes to do topical progesterone, more natural to the body,
Yeah,
not as many metabolites, which can cause problems. But there's still, I would say, majority of women actually on HRT are on oral progesterone,
got it.
topical estrogen. Some are being given oral estrogen. So no, like in our practice, we like injectable testosterone because it converts less to DHT than topical cream.
Hmm.
And we've actually had women that use topical testosterone and actually will grow hair where they put it, which, yep.
Wow.
Look at your face like, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I saw my
unless
friend's
unless
thigh
they're
and her
into it,
thigh,
huh?
like, she had like a
Wow.
patch of hair. So we'll actually tell women if they're going to use testosterone cream to put it actually on their labia because
Yeah,
there's already hair there in
yeah.
some cases. So,
Hmm.
um, but so that's why we like
Or
injectable
be like
estrogen.
really funny, or put it like in a very specific shape, and then at least you have like your logo somewhere or something. Uh, got it.
Yes, you could do
So,
that too.
yes. So to refine my question, what are you guys as preferred ways? So the preferred
Yeah.
ways are
Are,
injectable testosterone,
yep.
and then both estrogen or estradiol and progesterone topical,
Topical
transdermal.
or transdermal. We love progesterone suppositories.
Hmm.
Love the oils, progesterone oil, estrogen oil, DHEA and estrogen vaginal
Hmm.
moisturizer. It works like really, really
Okay.
well. Ugh, amazing. So yeah, we have our specific things that we lean more
Mhm.
towards for sure. We never do oral estrogen, even if it's bioidentical, it's still going to raise your risk of heart attack and stroke.
Got it.
And then uh, besides that, there's a few other variations. We'll get some women that need injectable estrogen because their
Yeah.
skin's thicker and it doesn't absorb the transdermal very well. Some women just like doing suppository, so we try to work with whatever's working best for that person, and
Got it.
we will fine tune it and see everybody as an individual. I think that that's
Yeah.
really important with HRT, and I think more practitioners need to be open-minded to that. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to combining it with topical,
Yes,
because
that's
you're
my
going to
next.
get
Yeah.
all of those hormones that I just talked about, plus growth hormone, melatonin, like DHEA, all of these hormones will help you build collagen,
Yeah.
help you with elastin. So not only from the inside, because we need collagen all over the place, but also when you put it on topically, it will produce more, I think it was type 3 collagen in the
Type 1
face.
and 3. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it also topically, you're going to get pore shrinkage, which was why I first started using it. Was my pores, I started getting that testosterone dominant thing
Yeah.
happening. My skin got greasy. I was getting large pores as I was going into menopause. And so I started using estrogen on my face, and it shrunk all my pores back to normal. And I had never
Yeah.
had that problem. I had always had good skin. So I was mortified. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And it really did work. And in this research, it showed that within 6 months, there was 63 to 100% pore shrinkage in the women that
Yeah.
were using it, and a decrease in the wrinkle depth. So
Hmm.
increase in collagen, decrease in wrinkle depth, and a decrease in pore size, which that's pretty powerful stuff. And then you get like things like the DHEA and testosterone topically actually
Hmm.
helps to thicken the skin,
Yeah.
helps with the collagen. Melatonin, because it's such a strong antioxidant, awesome for the face. It's
Yeah.
great. You don't want to put it on in the daytime because it actually will make you tired. I remember watching our friend Nat Nidham when we were at this Airbnb together, and we got this cream from a friend of ours that had just made it, and it had a whole bunch of melatonin in it. And she rubbed it on her face, and she's just sitting in the corner. She's like, "Oh my god, the melatonin cream!" And
Yeah.
she's like falling asleep. So I always tell
Yes.
her, like, don't use it unless you're gonna like ready for bed.
So funny. So actually, I'm going to tell you two cool things. So
Okay.
the I'm going to shout out the company. So I used to use oral dutasteride and minoxidil and stuff like that for hair loss.
Yeah.
Anastasia made me,
Yep.
and obviously monitoring my hormone, making sure that I'm not a person that it would lower their systemic free testosterone, etc. Having said that, I did not like the idea of playing with my hormones. And again, so DHT is actually something important that you suppress DHT holistically when you do that. So I didn't want to do
Yes.
that. So I started a topical version with a company called Roots by Genetic Arts. It's called. Shout out to them. It's definitely not sponsored. I pay for that good money, and they do a genetic swab, like a mouth swab. They do a genetic test, which they try to correlate to things that you would respond to better. But mine actually has, aside from tutasteride, I think, and again like um, minoxidil, it has a few other things, and a couple of them are caffeine and melatonin. So looking into their
Yes.
formulation, I've learned that a lot of, we specifically believe that there are, for the skin, there are antioxidants that are better. Having said that, good chemists sometimes would actually combine the two in a topical formulation to kind of off balance that effect, and there are obviously benefits to both.
Very
Yeah.
cool. I've seen the caffeine in there before and like saw palmetto and hair
Yeah.
serums and stuff, but I've never heard of melatonin being in there to help with
Mhm.
hair
Yep,
growth.
mhm.
So that's
Yes.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
melatonin is a very misunderstood hormone. Everyone
Yeah.
just thinks it's for sleep, and it's like, oh my God, we got melatonin receptors on our ovaries, and it does
Correct.
influence fertility.
Yeah.
It's
But
crazy.
well, that is a very, when I am on a panel, or let's just say when I try to sound cool and interesting,
Yep.
um,
Which is
I
all the time. Come
yeah,
on.
that's what I'm trying to. Yes, that is correct. Uh, Especially with people, with strangers, people who don't know how boring and nerdy I am. So, what I try to do, if anyone asks me, hey, what is to debunk something or talk about something people don't know or anything like that, I talk about the fact that um, if you want to do something to affect your general health, do movement, sleep, blah blah blah, but also like interact with temperatures, cold plunges, saunas, things like that. The reason is if you are trying to self science hormones, that's going to go wrong because the same hormone, which melatonin definitely goes into that category for many reasons, does completely different things in different parts of the body. So you cannot like say, hey, I want this there, and it's just going to get there magically, right? Like you mentioned melatonin in the gut, in your muscles, and in the brain do completely different things. Same thing, obviously, I think the best point is obviously like epinephrine, norepinephrine, but like there are so many examples of that.
Well, you just broke up there. I don't know if it was on your end too, but on my end, I couldn't hear you for a little bit. So you
That's
might want to
okay.
check that after.
I said boring things anyway. No,
Okay.
well, we're gonna stop for the editor, but basically,
Okay.
it saves it on two sides. So we're gonna count until five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pow. Anyway, so hormones, the same hormone will do completely different things in completely different areas of your body.
Of the body. Yeah.
And melatonin obviously is the
Yeah. Yeah. And we just put them all in a silo. It's like everyone thinks, oh, estrogen, progesterone, fertility, testosterone's a man's hormone, melatonin's for sleep,
yeah.
oxytocin's for lovemaking. It
Mhm.
there's so many different purposes to these hormones. We have to stop saying that they're sex hormones, that they're fertility hormones. These are whole
Yeah.
body hormones. We've got receptors
Yeah.
for estradiol on every organ in the body. So it
Yeah, and you
helps
mentioned
every organ function better.
oxytocin. I remember A4M were obsessed. A4M, American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine, is really the place that a someone like myself would go to know what your like anti-aging doctor is gonna, like hormone balancing doctor, whatever that is, will talk with you for the next like 24 months, 12 to 24 months. And they were obsessed with oxytocin for a while. But then, I mean, everyone got kind of a little bit off the bandwagon because oxytocin taken orally or even
No
through an
good.
IV, by the way, so whatever you would want to do doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, to the point, by the way, that just as an example, the pitocin, which you give pregnant women to induce
Synthetic oxytocin. Yeah.
yeah, it's a synthetic oxytocin, yeah. So you know I think we're kind of saying the same thing. I do want, look, we don't have a lot of time, so I do want to talk about kind of combining HRT
Yeah.
and topical estradiol.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Timing wise too.
Yeah.
Like,
So
because a lot of women ask that.
not only timing, I'm also curious as far as like percentage, because as far as I
Hmm.
know, most studies were done with 2%, sorry, like topical 2% estradiol. And even 2% estradiol are specifically looking at like crow's feet, as far as what I've read. And I'm curious as far as like do different creams, as far as like where you apply them, have different percentages that work well? Timing, does it fluctuate from person to person? Maybe one person is better with 1%, one in the other with 3%. How do you kind of combine the two?
Yeah, I think in the one big study that was done, it was a 3%. I think you're
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of what ours is. I think my estriol estradiol combo is a 5%, I want to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
It's per dose is
Hmm.
1 milligram estradiol with 4 milligrams of estriol.
Hmm.
And that's quite concentrated.
Yeah.
And so it is for the more mature skin. And I tell women, you could use our biased if you're in perimenopause, but you have to use it cautiously. The research showed that there was no increase in systemic levels when
Yeah.
used on the face. But now that I've had my creams for the last year and a half out on the market, I was first saying, like, oh, the research shows it's not going to raise systemic levels. But I didn't think about the fact that women would take this and freaking run with it and be like,
Hmm.
I'm going to shower myself in her cream so I
Yeah.
can have the anti-aging benefits of it, which you don't have to do. But they were using like a whole dose, which I don't even understand how they were applying that to their face, that much
Hmm.
cream.
Yeah.
But we did see that if you were using more than what was recommended, then levels could go up
Hmm.
systemically. And
Got it.
so you'd only need a little pea size, which would be the equivalent of about 0.25 milligrams of estradiol
Yeah.
uh, per day on the face. Now, if you're in menopause, for sure, you can do that a couple of times a day, like in the morning and at night, and without a problem, because you need the estrogen. But you do
Yeah.
want to watch your levels, and you want to monitor and make sure that, if you start getting signs of too much estrogen, well, then you topping up your systemic estrogen with face cream, that you have to maybe cut back on the systemic levels if you're going to want
Yeah.
to use that much on your face, neck, and
Hmm.
chest.
Yeah.
And so you do want to watch. I always say you should be doing labs no matter. The thing is most women need more estrogen anyways than what they're getting from their
Yeah.
doctors, right? Because
Yeah.
doctors really hold back on estrogen. So if you're in your late perimenopause and menopause phase, yeah, you're going to have you likely are not going to have a problem with it, as
Hmm.
far as, oh, yeah, it might bump up your level a little tiny bit, but
Hmm.
that's probably going to be a good thing if you weren't getting up in those levels that I was talking about earlier. That's going to
Yeah.
give you all that protection, right?
Yeah.
So, watching it, if you are in early perimenopause, then you're going to want to be a little bit more careful, use even less, and maybe combine it with a topical progesterone cream, because that's the hormone that drops first in women, is progesterone. And that will
Got it.
happen usually late 30s, early 40s. It takes a serious dive because we don't ovulate as often. And so using progesterone topically, melatonin topically, can help with the building of the collagen. And
Yeah.
so if you're using it systemically and topically, no problems. We don't
Yeah.
see women overdoing that ever.
Yeah.
And then
So
if you're using the estrogen on your face, no matter what, you should be counterbalancing it with progesterone.
on the face as well. Is that the product that
No,
you
no,
guys
not on
offer?
the face systemically.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Now I do have a question about if someone were to use it once daily. Is there a difference as far as like results if you use it during the day or at night?
I haven't seen it. And I
Okay.
personally, uh, because I use my young goose, to be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah,
during the
yeah.
day. I do. I use the serum, or I have a
Yeah,
copper serum too that I
yeah,
use. So I use the serum with your day cream. I switch in between the Pro Care and the other one that
yeah.
I've got. And
Just
then at
reset, yeah.
nighttime, I usually will do a serum, and then I will put my Bias
Yeah.
cream before
Okay.
bed, because it is a little bit heavier of
Hmm.
a cream. And so I do like to put it on at nighttime, and then it helps me sleep too. And so I'll put face, neck, and chest at bedtime.
So let me ask you a question. If someone is, because that's a lot of real estate to put it on. So 0.25 ml, just to give someone a reference, that's with our bottles, that's like one pump, one full pump. So normally to cover like the face and neck and chest, we're almost looking at like a 0.75 that someone would feel comfortable with. It's super obviously personal, etc., but that's how people normally use it, like 0.5 to 0.75, so 2 to 3 pumps. So for that person not wanting to use, not to overuse bias, for example, or any type of estriol, estradiol cream. could they mix it into a, let's say do 0.25 of this plus, 2
Absolutely.
pumps of, shameless plug youth daily or any other
Yeah.
thing that they use?
Yes, yes, and I have done that many times too. Like I'll
Cool.
use the oxygen face mask that you guys
Yeah,
have,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's quite a bit of moisture
Mm-hmm,
on the face, and so I won't use as much.
mm-hmm.
We have a precision pump bottle, and so I usually to get the face, the neck, the chest. You're looking at almost 2 pumps, I would say,
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
that, which would give you 0.5 milligrams of
yeah,
estradiol in there
yeah,
and 2 milligrams estriol. So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
it is concentrated. Um,
Sounds like it. Yeah.
but yeah, you can, and I even say like you can mix in a little, like I have a melatonin progesterone oil, and I say just put a few drops in your nighttime cream, whatever it is that you use,
Yeah.
and put that on your face. It's great,
Mm-hmm.
great to add it in. So yeah, there's
Yes.
many ways that you can. I find it really combines well with those other creams like
Mm-hmm.
Young Goose. I will give you as many plugs as you want, but don't
But
worry,
I
he's
would
not paying me to say this, you guys.
I would say one thing that's for the completely other end of the spectrum. If anyone is sharing their products or potentially suspect that they share their products with their teenager slash like
Mm,
early 20 person, um, the way that our body staves off puberty is by having a like a continuous melatonin production in the body. So when that melatonin production kind of shifts to a circadian production, that is when puberty kind of kicks in. So just as like a super small caveat, if anyone is specifically have a melatonin product and they are, it's an antioxidant, it's all fun and good, I wouldn't necessarily allow people that are going through, that are interacting with puberty or ramping up of hormones to interact with melatonin. And that's, by the way, one man's
one man's
fears and
opinion.
opinion,
I
systemic
agree
as well.
though. I
Yeah.
agree. I have a guy that does some of my marketing stuff for me, and he's got 2 teenage daughters.
Hmm.
And I sent him some of he has trouble sleeping. I sent him my progesterone melatonin oil.
Hmm.
So it's combined into one oil. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, it helped me sleep." And he's like, "So I gave it to my daughters, I gave
Yeah.
it to my wife." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Like, whoa down. Like I understand that's
Yeah.
great, but I'm like, you don't want to be giving that to your 16-year-old
No.
old daughters. You
Yeah.
don't want to be messing with
Yeah.
their hormones, right?
Yeah.
And I give it to my husband, and I always just tell him just a couple drops. Like, you're a man, you don't produce that much. You produce
Yeah.
progesterone, but not that much. And so he just rubs it on his neck before bed, and it helps him sleep better. And
Yeah.
it helps him, take, Ben Greenfield, he uses it. He's like, "Yeah, I use it before my nap and it helps me fall asleep." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
great." You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to be
Shout
careful.
out, shout out to Ben. Ben,
Yeah.
well, Ben is notorious for putting our products scrotally. So we're gonna, you
Oh,
know,
scrotally.
he says it
There you
raises
go.
NABS. So anyway, let's go kind of, because we're trying to keep it over under an hour. It never happens, but let's talk about some rapid fire questions. Obviously, we covered a lot of it, but one hormone women should start testing in their 40s.
Progesterone.
Mhm. Biggest myth about HRT and aging.
Well, the myth is that it causes
Yeah, yeah. I
cancer,
think probably
you
that's the
know?
biggest myth by
Yeah,
far.
it's the myth by far, but it is with aging, yeah, because with age we get more
Yeah,
cancer. So no, it's the opposite. HRT
yeah,
helps reduce your cancer risk.
yeah.
Yeah.
Top skincare ingredient to pair with HRT.
Anything that's in Young Goose?
Okay, done. I'll take it. Maybe melatonin. We mentioned melatonin so much, so we'll
Yeah.
shout out melatonin here.
Okay.
Morning or evening, best time to apply topical hormones. Okay.
In either one, you can do
Okay.
it. Yes,
How
but
about
I
transdermal?
prefer night.
How about transdermal?
Yeah, either one. You can do
Either
like
one.
if you're doing a face cream for estrogen, you can do it both morning and
Yeah.
night if you wanted to. But
Oh,
if you're in menopause with the
yeah.
estrogen, yeah, and progesterone makes you tired, so you might not want to use that on your face in the morning.
Yeah. True. One surprising beauty change clients report post HRT.
Beauty change. Yep, skin changes for sure. I've had everything from my skin, people think I'm tan, like the color's better, the
Yeah.
texture's better, things like this. And
Hydration,
probably,
maybe.
yep, because it does plump the skin. It
Yeah.
has to do with hyaluronic acid, the production of it, estrogen. Mental health, though, is probably, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a big one too. But you said beauty, didn't you? Have to do with beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
question said it. We can break the. But
And the women feel sexier. Like they really on the inside
yeah,
feel more attractive.
the most important.
It
That's
is.
what we're all here for. Uh, should every woman use hormones, or are there exceptions?
There's exceptions. Yep. If you have a
Okay.
history of estrogen positive breast cancer or progesterone positive breast cancer, there's a few other things. Yep. So it's not for everyone,
Okay.
but for most, it's safe and it's beneficial.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. So first of all, Karen, thank you for coming. I think my big takeaway is you're wired to care about beauty, and your hormones are, or they play a huge role
Huge.
in maintaining it. Sometimes we go into like literally like how they prioritize collagen production in one area and not in another, but it's so like we're not even like fully understanding how big of a role they play. They're
Exactly.
definitely they're definitely the levers that are
Yes.
pulled, you know.
Got
Uh
it. Yes.
yeah.
100%.
HR Another one I think is HRT when done right, isn't just about health, but it really is about, well, obviously it's about health number one, but it's anything from skin appearance to confidence, which I love that you put there a few times in the end, and longevity, as we mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, what do you
yeah,
know of? Do you know of a single supplement that has those kind of stats behind it?
no.
Reducing your risk of all causes of
Yeah.
death by 30%? No, there's nothing.
Well, there's one. There's one. Shout out to Ben Azadi in his new book.
Yeah, I just interviewed him
Your
coming out in a
book.
couple days here.
What is the
Metabolic
book?
freedom.
Hey, Metabolic Freedom coming out May 13th.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ben Azadi.
Yes.
And of course, his one ingredient, which is vitamin G for
Yeah.
gratitude.
Oh
So
my
maybe
god.
vitamin G.
Vitamin
Uh,
G.
yeah,
That's
love that.
great. I love
Anyway,
that.
Karen, I love you. And I can't wait to listen to this episode myself. It was so great
So
having you on.
great. Always great to talk to you.
Yeah. And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure we're going to see each other soon.
I'm sure.
All right. Bye, everyone.